Hi guys, so I'm here today with Bruno. He runs an excellent YouTube channel and he also has a very popular Facebook group at the moment. It's focused on an 80-20 approach to the carnivore diet, so 80% fat and 20% protein by energy value. So the reason why I wanted to bring him on today was to speak about his experiences with dieting. So for those of you that don't know, he is someone that has had a couple of health issues and he's been trying to lose weight for quite a long period of time, and he's been basically trying to tweak things and adjust things to find a way which works best for him. So what I wanted to broadly ask today as my first question was basically describe who you are and where you started and where you're at now.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Jonathan. I really appreciate that. I'm a big fan of the channel. So my weight has been an issue since I was pre-teen. I was an average sized kid, and by the time I was 10, I started putting on weight. And by the time I was 16, I maxed out the scale. Actually, by the time I was 13 or 14, I maxed out the scale at 315 pounds. And I never knew how much I weighed after that, but I could tell by my clothes now that I was easily 400 pounds by the time I was 16 years old. And it's odd that my parents didn't do anything about that. They didn't recognize that as a serious health problem. And especially since it came out of the blue, it's not like I was always big as a kid, and I was active, but I did what's known to be the impossible. And I out exercised a bad diet because I was eating a lot, like most teenage boys. And I started weight training, and I lost all that weight and got down to 204 pounds. And I looked at, by the time I was 17 years old, and I lost at least 150 pounds. And I did it through exercise. I accidentally created a circuit training routine. So I had no idea why I was losing all this weight. My doctor had no idea. He knew even less about nutrition than I did. And I also developed hypothyroidism by the time I was 19 or 20. And so that weight slowly came on, but I used to be a bouncer. So I didn't mind that I put on some weight for a while there. I was like, it's going to help me out. And I was still active with martial arts and weight training. And then I just yo-yoed up and down for many years after that. And I eventually got back up to, or I might have even taught myself, I'm pretty sure I did. I got up to over 465 pounds. And that was pretty crazy. I felt really good, believe it or not. I had some health problems, but it wasn't anything that I wasn't managing. Like I had like plantar fasciitis. I was still young enough. I was in my mid-late 30s. All the problems you have to worry about are like silent problems, like heart disease that's brewing in the background, potentially kidney problems. I was clearly diabetic, but my fasting blood sugar and insulin showed I was at best pre-diabetic. So, which is a real amazing feat for the body to be that far gone. And the doctors are saying, no, your numbers are just a little bit out. And it's not that they were fine with it. They're like, you got to lose weight, but they really didn't stress it. And so I saw this doctor in the fall of 2013 for 5 months who put me on a really restricted diet. It was 0 carbohydrates, and it was treating sugar and carbohydrate addiction. And he was extremely strict, and I never deviated one bite, but he would ream you a new one if he thought you were lying. It was pretty funny. He was a jerk, and he was proud to be a jerk. And you have to be, I think, to a certain extent when you're dealing with people with addictions. You have to be able to call them out on things. And week by week, he'd reintroduce certain foods, and like that are extremely low on the glycemic index. So I was allowed to I had no fat in the diet, and I was eating just protein. And every week he'd reintroduce a carbohydrate like peppers. And then the next week it would be another food. I eventually got to the point where I was having a little bit of berries twice a day, like a handful of blueberries, once a day, twice a week. And low on the glycemic index. And he wanted to see how everyone's body was reacting as they reintroduced these foods. And if you had a weight loss plateau for a week, he was like, okay, well, did you cheat? And then if you're like, no, I swear to God, I didn't cheat, he'd be, okay, well, this food's a trigger for you, clearly. And so we're going to keep you at this for another week or two until your body adjusts to it. So that was my first introduction to zero carb. And after a year, I made a silly mistake, and I started having a little bit of ice cream. And I had, for the first time, ice cream like the size you would give a 3-year-old child, a small scoop of ice cream. And I remember eating it, laughing at how small it was, but eating it thinking, I feel great. Like I don't crave it. I don't want more. I was satisfied with a small portion I had. And I thought, this is what normal people feel like, that I've never had in my whole life. I could just keep on going. And so I thought, I'm going to do this once a week. And then after a month, I was like, I felt good doing that. I'm going to try it twice a week. Another month went by and I was like, I felt good doing that. This is awesome. This is good. And then I tried for 3 times a week. My sugar addiction came right back full force. Portion sizes went out of control. I gave into every craving, and that was it. And then I just yo-yoed back up. I had a major heart attack after this in 2015, in the fall of 2015. And I was already down. I had dropped over 165 pounds doing that very fast, by the way. And I was on my way back up. I was probably 80 pounds up from that when I had my heart attack. And I was taking large doses of anti-inflammatory, steroid-based anti-inflammatory, and they cause blood clots. And so that's most likely, on top of years of being overweight and yo-yo dieting, the major cause, because I was taking triple the strength of this medication twice daily. And that was the only thing I could take to manage my gout attacks, because I was dealing with severe gout all the way through this. And I eventually had this heart attack. It was a 100% blockage in my right coronary artery. So 50% of my heart was getting no blood. And I ended up recovering from that. What I didn't realize at the time was because I was overweight and clearly diabetic, even though the doctors were saying I wasn't, it buffers the symptoms if you have diabetes and you're having a heart attack. So my most severe symptom was maybe like a 4 out of 10, and it was nausea. But I had a lot of the classic symptoms, but I didn't have tightness in the chest. So I was breathing fine. So I was just giving a massage when this happened. So I finished the massage, and because I thought it might be a panic attack, because I've had lots of clients through the years who thought they were having a heart attack, and it turned out to be a panic attack. Well, I never had either. So I was like, okay, well, I don't have any breathing problems. Maybe it's a panic attack. I Googled it, and I was right, and it was a heart attack. So I was like, okay, I got to try doing this zero carb diet more strict and more consistent, because I'd always crash and fall off of it. And I found going off of the diet would make my gout go away. And I realized there's a correlation between my gout attacks and eating clean and exercising. And it's because the uric acid backs up in the bloodstream when you're trying to eliminate when you're trying to eliminate ketones through the kidneys, the uric acid backs up. And so you get these gout attacks within a day or two of doing everything right. And it was really frustrating. And I eventually came across Carnivore in 2017, and I didn't really apply it till 2018. And yeah, it was good. It was it's tough for me to stay consistent with, because then I got kidney stones and I went off of it. And my kidney stones were uric acid backing up in my kidney. So I wasn't getting any gut attacks, but it was trying to leave my body, and it was backing up in the kidney. So I got kidney stones. And I went through a few months of hell with that. And then I came across berberine a couple years later. And that was the game changer for me, because it managed my insulin, because I found out after all these years of research, trying to understand gout even more than I learned in college, was trying to figure out why I was getting these I was getting plagued with these gut attacks. And it turned out there's a correlation, it's not proven, between blood sugar issues, metabolic syndrome, and gout. So I thought, okay, so if I manage my fasting blood sugar and insulin, which was good fasting, those numbers were perfect on Carnivore, But I thought maybe every time I eat, I'm possibly still have screwed up insulin. And I did some research into that. And sure enough, it's a thing. Even though my fasting insulin it was good, and so was my fasting blood sugar, it was a huge issue with my meals. So I took berberine, which is a natural sort of metformin, and it just managed that really well. And from that day on, that was the last gout attack I had. So I was just able to fly with carnivore, and I just kept doing carnivore, and I was able to be consistent with it. And then I put my dog down, and that all that emotional eating I was doing that got me that big, it did me in. I fell off the wagon for a really long time, for about 4 months, and I couldn't get control of my diet. Every day I would wake up and think, okay, I'm gonna do good today. I'm not gonna cheat. And by 10:30, I was ordering a pizza, and then I would get like, I'd eat a whole pizza. You know, my portion sizes were another issue, as well as sugar addiction. And I would have 3 pints of ice cream, not just one little like serving. So it was not good. And that turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I went through that for 4 months before I learned the most valuable lesson I think lots of carnivores and zero carbers are in denial with is, I'm an abstainer, not a moderator. I just can't moderate. I've tried a dozen different ways, a dozen times over, you know, a little bit with each meal, a little bit once a day, a little bit in the beginning of the day, a little bit at the end of the day, a little bit once a week, a lot once a week, maybe a whole week, a treat weekend. Tried lots of different ways. I just couldn't do it. And not for long. I could do it for weeks or months, but then I would just binge afterwards for a long time. And I learned it's easy for me to abstain from all that food. It's work to try and moderate it for me. It's almost like saying to a drug dealer, just try a little bit of crack once a day, just a little bit. Like they just can't do it. And I'm not trying to insult drug addicts who are like, well, clearly you've never done drugs. The point is, when you're addicted to substance, you can't moderate it. And that was my difficulty. And once I accepted that, I was like, I've been trying to moderate this for years, for 6 years, and I can't. I just accepted the fact that I just can't. If I otherwise I would have done it by now. And at that point it was easy, and I just started flying. And I made my YouTube channel to try and manage part of my progress, because I thought it'd be good to monitor my progress as I started doing this weight training routine and carnivore together. And it was pretty cool, because a friend of mine said, put it on YouTube, because I was just going to record it and maybe after I was done, put it on YouTube. I said, no, people want to see the success story. So I'm down 160 pounds now, and I have maybe about another 70 to go. So that's and along with that, a slew of health issues, like I said, every symptom in metabolic syndrome, the heart attack, the gout, the kidney stones, plantar fasciitis. I had a bad history with back pain. It's not an issue anymore. I've also learned my problem with my back pain, on top of inflammation, was also just my erector spinae group is weak, and it always throws my SI joint out. And once my SI joint goes out, back pain for weeks, and I'm walking like a pretzel. So a chiropractic adjustment does me pretty good for that. If I get to it in the first 12 hours, then it doesn't turn into anything at all. So it's like being more in tune with your body.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, I'm going to struggle to write a title of this video of what you just said. But it's incredible. It just goes to show, when you follow a carnivore diet, you know, you can really improve a lot of different things. You know, Bruno here, he's done a lot of stuff, like lost weight, you know, eliminated gout, the addictive eating patterns, you know, everything like that. You know, you mentioned so many things. It's incredible. Like, you're just like an average person. You're not someone with like super duper genetics that just happen to get great results, you know. So I find that amazing. I mean, the next question I have is, might be tricky for you to sort of answer, but you know, just do your best, in your opinion anyway. So would you say that diet or exercise has been a bigger impact on your results, or a combination of both perhaps?
I find a combination of both, because my main theme through my progress, which has slowed up my progress in a lot of ways, is trying to maintain my lean mass as I lose weight. So I've found from yo-yo dieting through the years, whenever I started losing weight, I would lose muscle first and foremost. I always noticed that. My arms would get thinner, my shoulders would get thinner, everything would get thinner, and then I'd go through my fat loss. And then after however many weeks or months I was doing that, when I bottomed out and then eventually went back to a crappy diet every single time, that was my problem. I never did anything sustainable. What happened was, in that first week of introducing all the junk food again, my muscles would rehydrate and they would get bigger again. My arms would. So now I had less fat, but I had the muscle build up, and which now is like what so many competitive athletes are doing for that like final day for the competition, right? They rehydrate their muscles. And I find that fascinating because I stumbled across that since the 90s. And back then people would just they wouldn't rehydrate before competitions, and they were starving themselves so much. And I want to maintain or build muscle as I lose weight. So I found when I was powerlifting for a while there, and after my heart attack, I got into powerlifting, which sounds weird, but I look at it as much as strength training as anything else. And I noticed that was when the first time in my life I ever paid attention to my diet and exercise at the same time. I was always doing one or the other. I would work out a lot, but I ate as much as I could anyway. So putting on lean mass was never an issue for me. Now I find I have a hard time maintaining my lean mass, probably because there's no carbohydrates to keep the muscles hydrated, right? So, but I noticed week by week, I was working out with a trainer, because powerlifting was a new style of working out for me, and I wanted that new challenge. And when my diet was off on a crappy standard American bad diet full of junk food, he would look at my lifts, because every week we'd measure my reps and my my weight. So he was a big fan of Arthur Jones. So we would do one set to complete failure, and then that was it. We moved on to the next exercise, and we monitored those numbers very precisely. And he would say to me, he said, "You made it look easy this week." I would do my bench press, and I would have gone up 2 pounds that week, or a pound and a half. And instead of going between 12 and 15 reps, I was up to like 17 or 18 reps. And he's like, "You made it look easy this week." I'm like, "Yeah, my diet's been off. It's been just junk." But my waistline would go up. So my strength went up with my waistline. I would do clean eating, moderate protein multiple times throughout the day, more of a bodybuilder style diet. And he would say, I would get the same results. He would say, "You made it look easy this week." And I was like, "Yeah, my diet's been really spot on." And I was moving up, and I was getting adequate amounts of protein to do that and to build the muscle. And I would notice these results within a few days of changing my diet, by the way, too. It's not like I had to do it for a month. I would start eating clean on a Monday, and I would notice by my Tuesday and Saturday workouts that it was really easy. So whenever I did something traditional and more of a caloric deficit, trying to get maybe 2,500 calories in a day or 3,000 calories in a day, which just isn't enough for a 400-pound man. While I'm trying to strength train, I would do that. I think I would go down to about 2,500 calories, because like trying to be down like 500 calories a day, from like a number like 3,000, so that I would lose like a couple pounds a week. And I would struggle to get 10 to 12 reps instead of sticking between 12 to 15. And he was like, "What happened this week?" And I was like, "Well, I'm on a restricted diet. I'm just not getting as much protein and fuel throughout the week." So I really noticed the dramatic difference with my training and diet together for the first time. And I was in my early 40s, I think, or late 30s by the time I started actually paying attention to that in more detail. So ever since I noticed, it's like exercise is like 15% of the results. I think diet is a bigger factor, but that exercise has to be spot on. It's like you can do all the exercise in the world if you want, but if your diet's off, you're not really going to see much of the results physically anyway. And so it's almost, I always liken it to the bicep. Everyone thinks the biceps job's prime action is to bend the arm. It's actually to supinate. So to take your hand and do this. That's the prime movement of the bicep. Then the secondary movement is to curl it. If you curl your arm palm down, you're not engaging the bicep at all. And it's got zero involvement. So the supination is the diet, and the flexion of the elbow is the exercise. You can, if your diet is off, really it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're going to get minimal results. You'll get results, but it'll be minimal results. So it's like you're already doing the hard part with the exercise. Lots of people out there, and it's like manage it with the diet, and you'll fly. You'll go really far with it. But so both are important, but I think diet's a bigger part of it as far as at least aesthetics go.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when I program my plans for clients, it's not just, oh, here's a training program, here's a diet, you know. Ideally, I like people to tell me what of each they're doing first, so I can assess what I need to put in their diet or what kind of training I need to give to them. Because if there's someone that can't eat a lot of food and they're very frail, me giving them a load of high volume, high intensity training isn't going to work out too well.
Right.
So you're completely right. Right, it does go hand in hand, and yeah, the diet is definitely more important, at least from what I
Yeah.
see anyway.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah. So the next question I have is about the group you have on Facebook. So you have a group which promotes an 80% fat and 20% protein by energy value way of eating, and you have probably over 1,000 members or so now, maybe 2,000, something like that. And basically, what it is what have you noticed over time with that group? Has it been that the group's generally had a trend of results in a certain direction or the other direction? What reasons might there be for anything like that?
Well, I originally started that group because I was doing a challenge. I gave myself a challenge, as I've been doing ever since I started my YouTube channel. I would do a challenge for a couple months or a few months at a time. And I had some people inquire about it, and they're like, hey, I want to do this challenge with you. And I thought, well, that's neat. No one's ever suggested doing a challenge with me. So I made another video and I said, hey, some people have expressed interest, and if you're interested, let me know. And then I think I had about 50 people who said, yeah, I want to do this challenge with you. And I thought, well, we got to find a way to communicate with each other. So I opened up this Facebook group because this was a high fat, moderate protein, multiple small meal a day challenge. It was 4 small meals a day. And so I got a lot of pushback from intermittent fasters who happen to follow my channel because they think every time you eat, your insulin spikes. And it's like, it's not an on-off switch. It's a wave, right? And you get smaller waves. So I had to go through that. But I find before I knew it, in that first month, 1,000 people signed on to my Facebook group. And I don't think I was even advertising it on Facebook. I think it was close to the public because I was really trying to make sure it wasn't going to get full of a bunch of jerks. And I wanted to be a safe place for people to express their concerns and opinions and have questions and not be shamed for something. But I had some strict rules. I was like, don't mention anything off a carnivore diet because some people are still addicted to carbs. And you mentioned chocolate cake in one of your posts, and that person who's still suffering from withdrawals, like it's all they're going to think about for the next 3 days until they eventually give in to that chocolate cake craving. And so I would say the biggest trend I notice, and I don't mean to sound negative towards these people, because I'm in this category myself with stubborn weight loss. Lots of people do carnivore, they drop all the weight fast. I'm in there with a group of premenopausal and menopausal women who are having really stubborn weight loss, who have yo-yo dieted on and off for the years, or just been overweight for a long time. And they want it. The problem I found is they want the weight loss yesterday. They're not respecting the non-scale victories. Like, yeah, the scale went up 3 pounds since I've been doing this. Well, I'm down 2 dress sizes or pants sizes. They're very impatient and frustrated because they've been doing this for sometimes a while with carnivore, or they're just tired of just the weight not coming off. And so they're trying this newer version of carnivore. And I learned this from Kelly Hogan. And So this was designed to be just for a few months, but some people asked if we could keep the group around like indefinitely. And I was like, enough people seemed very interested in that. And Amber O'Hearn opened her group up. She had it for years, and her group is great. And I noticed there is a shift, including myself, from everyone in my group going over to Amber's group. I think it's Keto AF is what it's called. Yeah. And like my group was, what I loved about my group, you're such a huge participant in the Facebook group, and a wealth of knowledge. I loved how people were helping each other out and answering questions, and it was safe for people to just discuss these things. And since Amber opened her group, it's even more in depth because Amber is one of these people. She has I can't say she has the time. She's a scientist by heart, and she wants to answer everything as dispassionately as possible while not being rude, right? And she gets her point across. And so I think that's honestly the better group out there, to be honest, because mine was never designed to be long term. And if anything, I want to do more small meals a day. Take the amount of meals I'm having and split them into smaller amounts. Because if 4 small meals works, I want to have more protein in the day. I think I part of one of the rules was to this group was starting at 0.7 grams, because I think that's a decent starting point. And I lost a lot of fat, but I also lost a lot of lean mass because I wasn't working out. And there's this, I think in my experience, it's a myth that you don't lose lean mass if you go down to low protein. Because the problem with this was some people were like, well, if 0.7 grams works, then really well, then I'm going to go down to 0.3 grams, right? Or if only 4 meals works, I'm going to go down to 2 meals. And it's like, no, you're missing the point, right? So you get these metabolically challenged people starving themselves and not getting enough food doing this. And it was really frustrating. That was one of the big themes I noticed. People just weren't following, some people who weren't getting results just weren't following the rules. And I think you need to fuel yourself properly to lose weight in a healthy manner. And you need the exercise to go hand in hand with that. And that's the big thing I've noticed. That's been my frustration, even in my group and lots of other Facebook groups, is people just don't want to do the basic amount of exercise, to just a basic amount. Maybe go for a 10-minute walk after each meal. You want to lower your insulin response? Well, or in blood sugar response? Well, go for a 10-minute walk, a fast 10-minute walk. Maybe do 5 minutes of squats at the office, or 10 minutes of squats, and have that be a way to manage your blood sugar, and not just follow diet. So I've always been kind of frustrated because it's people circling around what they need to do and doing any extreme they can with their diet, which is still an unhealthy habit they have left over from all the years before they became carnivore, instead of doing what they need to do and just focus on some exercise while they're doing it. And so I wish that was a bigger part of both of these groups that are out there, and other carnivore groups. It's like there's a lot to be said about getting your diet and exercise done together.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think one issue I have with the carnivore diet, and it's not the diet itself, it's, like you said, the people that follow it. That's not personal against them. They're just people I don't know. But they're promoting the idea that, eat meat, drink water, and have salt in your meat, something that's going to be enough, and all your health problems will be solved. It doesn't seem to be the case, for at least for a lot of people that are perhaps a bit older, that have,
that's right,
had these long-term health issues that have accumulated over time, and it's not going to change overnight. So there's other modalities you can use. Diet and exercise are just 2 of many of them. And I'm really glad you brought up actually about your group. So I've got a video upcoming, probably maybe before or after this one, where I specifically talk about macro ratios, and in more depth than I did before. It's a shorter video, but it explains just what you said about, enough protein, enough fat, and the ratio. It's not as important as the actual numbers of each themselves. I think that's going to be a great video for people, and perhaps on your channel, to watch. So before we wrap this up, were there any sort of final thoughts you wanted to give?
I think the big thing that people lose sight of is, and it's usually people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, is a little bit of exercise goes a long way to manage your blood sugar and insulin and weight loss. Just make a good quality exercise. I'm not against cardio, but increasing your lean mass and start paying more attention to non-scale victories. I was at an 8-month plateau doing carnivore with my weight. Didn't discourage me one bit. Yeah, I wanted to see the weight loss come, but I was getting so many non-scale victories. My waistline was still going down slowly, but it was still, I lost about 2 inches in that 8 months on my waist, at least 2 inches. All my numbers with my doctor were getting better and better. So he can't turn around and criticize me for doing a carnivore diet the way he used to. Now he just doesn't say anything about it because one, he knows he's not going to get anywhere. And two, if it's working, stop trying to talk me out of it. Right. Almost all my health problems went away. I did a video with my list of health problems, and I think I had around 25 health problems that I started the carnivore diet with. Everything from severe situations like heart attack and kidney stones to plantar fasciitis. And I think by the end of it, I have 3 left: cholesterol, obesity, and cholesterol. You can argue that, right? So, but technically it's an issue. Obesity, which is getting better, and I think it was my waistline, which is getting better. So everything else is just managing on its own. So yeah, people need to pay attention to the non-scale victories and stop focusing so much on, are you going into a bodybuilding competition? Well, then start worrying about that stuff more. But if you're not, like when you hit a wall, after it's been not 2 weeks, but maybe a few months, do something about it and try and implement something new. Pay attention to what you're doing. That's probably my biggest thing, is just try and acknowledge the non-scale victories.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. That's it's so underrated, the things that we can't measure, how we feel, our mood, our sleep, everything around that is just really critical. So how can people find you, assuming that you want to be found?
Yeah, thanks. My YouTube channel is Zero Carb Health and Fitness, but if you just type in Bruno Panucci into your YouTube search, my videos usually populate pretty early on. So, and yeah, I have that Facebook group. It's an 80-20 4 small meal a day carnivore group. But usually my YouTube channel is the easiest way. I don't really have a huge online presence. I have a Instagram account, Bruno RMT, and I think the O is a 0. So it's Bruno with a 0. And yeah, so it's interesting because it's slowly become a carnivore channel or Instagram space. So it originally wasn't. So yeah, I have more carnivores following me than friends. So tough luck, friends.
That's brilliant. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, and I'll put your links in the show notes below.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jonathan.